Hello and welcome to part 2 of this SCSS course. So when writing CSS, we use a lot of styles. Sometimes we may reuse these styles. For example, a theme on a website, we may want to use the same colours throughout different pages. And if we need to change that colour further down the line, we'd have to go and find all of the different occurrences that the colour happens and change it every single time. And that can obviously be really annoying, and also might cause you to miss a few colours and cause your website to actually not be the colour you want it to be. And obviously this example works for a lot of different things like border sizes, whatever, text shadows, anything. And we can fix this by using variables. Variables are used to store information that can be used and referenced later on. A variable can hold any value, and to write a variable in SCSS, we start with the $sign and then the variable name, so we can just call it whatever. I'll do an example, variable name, and then it gets a value, like so. And this value, again, can be anything. So I'm going to create a variable main color, and I'm going to give this a value of blue. Now let's imagine that we had a H1 on our site and a paragraph that we wanted to target. Let's say the H1 was just a color of whatever, and then the P had a border of 1px solid something. So we could write blue here, but using variables we can just put the variable name here like so, and do the same where the color would go on the border. And now if we compiled this and saved it, let's have a look at the CSS file. Let's go in here and you'll see they both turn into blue and blue. So if I wanted to change this, I would simply just go purple, save it, come back in, purple. So you can imagine as your site got bigger and bigger and you had a lot more styles, using variables would be very useful. Another thing we can do is import variables from a different file. It doesn't have to be just variables that we can import, but we'll have a look at this in the next part or the part after. So let's create a new file and let's call it variables.scss, and I'm going to move my variable over to this file here. So this is what I do in my projects. I keep all my variables contained in a variables folder. And now to use this variable in other files, we come to the top, we import, and then in quotations we write the file name, so variables, like so. And now if we save that and look back, it still remains that. And if I change it again back to blue, save, there we go. Sorry. To actually get it affect that, you need to make a change in this file, and there we go, blue. What we can do with a variables file is create a partial file. A partial file allows us to use variables inside of it like we have here, but not to compile that file down into CSS. And we declare a partial file by simply adding an underscore to the beginning, and then we'll come into the other file and add it here too. And if I save that, and then I'll come in here and just change this to red, and there we go. It actually updates it without having to update the file in here. So I can prove that. I'll save this, I'll come in here and I'll just go green, save that file, come into here, and there we go, it updates like so. Finally, for this part, we have what is called nesting. Now, you've looked at nesting before, you've done it if you've done HTML. This is nested inside of this. This is nested inside of this. So imagine we actually had this on our site and we wanted to target this li. We would normally write something like this in the CSS. We'd probably write just li. But obviously, it would run into problems when we had multiple li's in our site. So we would obviously add the div ul li, so that specifies this li, or we could use a class name to make it even more important that it is just this li that we want to target. But a thing we can do in SCSS is nesting, so we can write the div like we normally would. We can give it some styles here, whatever color, whatever height, and then we can also come in and target the ul, and then we can come in and target the div, the li, sorry. And I want to move that li in here, sorry, like so. So this is the exact same as the example before. It just allows us to write styles as for each of these things, and specify that we only want this li to be this li here. So if I save that, and we can have a look at what that gets compiled down to. It actually doesn't get compiled down to anything because I don't have anything here. So let's just add color white, color red, and then color blue. And I'll save that and we'll have a look at what happens. So you can see it changes into div, gets that, div ul gets that one, div ul li gets that one. It just allows the SCSS to be a lot more readable. So we can see that these all belong to each other. We can see that this li belongs to this ul that has a color of red. So other li's in the site, we could style a different way, but we know that this one belongs to this one. A very useful thing that we can do with these as well is when we're doing, for example, a button, and we want to have a different style for when we hover over that button. We'd normally do this, but with SCSS we can simply do this. So just say, I want to style the button in a certain way, but I also want to style the button when it's hovered in a certain way. So again, it just keeps it readable, it keeps it all contained and modular. And that's it for this part. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next part.